All right, let's talk Texas Longhorns football. Obviously, Red River Shootout right around the corner. This is the game for Texas, probably their most difficult challenge before a potential Big 12 title game. And we've got great news on the Longhorns front. They're getting one of their key playmakers back on the field. There was some question whether he would return or not, but we got a great report, Mize, if you want to throw it up. This is from Longhorns Country. The number 3 Texas Longhorns are set to get their star tight end back for Saturday's rivalry showdown with the number 12 Oklahoma Sooners in Dallas at the Cotton Bowl. Per Texas coach Steve Sarkisian, Jatavion Sanders will play versus Oklahoma. JT looks great. He'll be good to go on Saturday, Sarkisian said. Sanders injured his ankle in the 40-14 win over the Kansas Jayhawks on Saturday after having his lower body landed on in a pile. He was in visible pain while limping off the field and eventually went back to the locker room after remaining on the sideline with his helmet for a while. This season, Sanders has posted 13 catches for 278 yards and 1 touchdown. Entering the Kansas game, Sanders was tied with Colorado State's Dalen Hooker for first among tight ends in the country with 268 receiving yards, which also led the Longhorns at the time. Hooker has proven to be a weapon with 4 touchdown passes compared to just 1 for Sanders, but the Texas pass catcher did so in just 12 catches compared to Hooker's 22 grabs. So long and short there is, of course, that Sanders is really good at football, and he's a big play machine for the Texas Longhorns offense. They're going to need it going up against Oklahoma, who's gotten better and better. The Venables defense is really starting to take effect. This isn't the Oklahoma of last year, who Texas absolutely obliterated. This is going to be a dogfight. You're going to need everyone you can get if you're Texas, and that's why I think this is huge news for the Longhorns, getting their star tight end back on the field for snap one against Oklahoma. I'm curious what your thoughts are on this, Mize, and the game in general. But before I throw it over to you, Texas fans, now's your chance, right? Before Saturday, here's your time. Give us your prediction. Final score, Texas, Oklahoma, Red River Shootout in the comment section below. But all right, Miles, let me push it back over to you now. What are your thoughts on the addition of Sanders back into this offense and potentially just the game in general? How you feeling how this is going to shake out?
Yeah, I think this is really good news for Texas. Obviously, coming into the game, they say it here, it's second in the country to Colorado State. And we all know Colorado State produces a lot of top tier tight ends. You remember Crockett Gilmore, Trey McBride, a lot of guys in the NFL right now. So I think this is really big news from Texas over Brock Bowers at that time. This is a guy who is doing really big things, gets banged up a little bit, coming back. We're not sure if he's going to make it for this. This is probably the biggest game of the season left for Texas. I think this is their, last bump in the road on their way to the Big 12 championship. I think that this could be huge for them. They got to have this guy on the field because he just makes a difference when they're out there. As we saw, 12 catches to 22. This guy can do a lot with a little bit. So I'm really excited for this guy to be back out there, Nick. I think this could be a huge, huge boost for the Texas offense that needs everything it can get going up against an Oklahoma's offense who's been very potent as well. So I think this is just really great timing, just right before the weekend. Get everyone's hopes up, Texas fans. I think this is huge news for you. But Nick, this has got to be this is going to be a shootout, a really, really interesting Red River shootout, nonetheless, for us to watch this weekend, don't you say?
Well, it's one of these weird games where I honestly don't know how it's going to play out. And obviously in yesteryear, right, anytime these two teams met, when they played in, 12 o'clock noon game was one of the more exciting games of the year. It always felt like it would be a 52-45. Whoever had the ball last had the best chance to win. Every once in a while, you'd sneak in a defensive battle. I really have no idea how this game's going to go. Oklahoma's a lot better than people thought they were coming into the season. Quarterback Dylan Gabriel's done a really nice job. The Venables defense over there in Norman's getting a little bit better and better. But on that note, Texas is a lot better than people thought as well. Obviously, the big point, beating Alabama by double digits, clearly outclassing Alabama in Tuscaloosa, number 3 team in the country for a reason. This game to me feels like a 24-20, 27-24 kind of game where it'll hinge on a couple key plays, big play opportunities, most likely in the red zone. And who do you rely on more in the red zone than any other player on the field outside, of course, the running game? Is the tight end, right? The big physical receiver who can win those key matchups, who can, whether it's a safety or a linebacker, he's got the speed to go away from a linebacker, the size to win up against the safety. I think that's why it's so important this guy's going to come back and play. And I think Sanders will be featured predominantly red zone because we know Texas is going to run the football with Brooks. We just know they're so good at running the ball. But they're going to have to convert on those red zone opportunities because that's what Oklahoma has become with Venables, right? They're a very bend but don't break defense. Excuse me. We saw that in Oklahoma's victory over the Cincinnati Bearcats. Texas, I think, is much more a physically dominating defense. So I think just on the back of the Texas defense, they'll keep the score down. But I think Oklahoma's strategy is to make Texas settle for field goals to keep it close to see how things shake out in the fourth quarter. I think the one way Texas can avoid that is converting early red zone opportunities to touchdowns, and Sanders is the guy to do just that.
Yeah, Nick. And I think really the last key to this game is who has been tested more. Yes, Oklahoma's put up some really stunning offensive numbers, but they haven't really played too many tough opponents coming into this game. Obviously, Texas has tested themselves the way through a Kansas team that was ranked kind of tough, a little bit interesting, a Baylor team that maybe could be interesting, and then Alabama obviously is the big win at the time for them. So this team has faced three opponents that I would say are worthwhile, worthy opponents. Oklahoma, not so much down the stretch. So we don't know exactly how good they are. So if I'm a Texas fan coming into this game, I think, hey, we've been there. We've faced some top tier opponents. I'm not quite as nervous going into this game just because you know how this team is going to fare. If you came to this game doing really well, but you hadn't played anyone yet, you'd think, well, this is another really good team. How are our guys going to hold up against some other top tier talent? And I think the answer now that we have seen them against the top tier talent is they will hold up very well. So you got to believe in your guys. And I think this Texas team has the firepower to do it.
I think the one concern for me for Texas is they cannot start slow. We saw that against Wyoming. We saw that against Rice. Frankly, we saw that against Kansas, even though Kansas was on their backup quarterback. Obviously, that fluky fumble touchdown was obviously kind of a weird deal, but still, that was a competitive game for a very long time. Oklahoma is clearly the best team outside of Alabama that Texas has faced all season long. This is an opportunity for Texas to come out and make a big statement victory. But like I said, they have to convert early opportunities into touchdowns. This Texas defense, I feel like, is going to do a number on Dylan Gabriel, but we know Big 12 football, a lot of points are going to be scored anyway on top of that. I think the only way Texas loses this game is if they settle for field goals in the red zone, and getting Sanders back and healthy and getting him integrated in the offense is the perfect way to prevent that from happening.